Hello and welcome to the Secret Society of Man podcast. My name is Zach. I'm here with my cousin Ryan. The king has fallen. That's Mr. Beast. He was YouTube's number one creator for the past number of years, the number one guy on the platform, known mainly for his very high production value videos. He does some crazy stuff on there, does a lot of stunts, but he also gives away a ton of money, which was a big part of his brand. He's always portrayed himself as this really charitable guy. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast a couple years ago, and that's when I really learned about him. And he just kind of came across as a guy that just started making videos in his room as a kid, just like any other YouTuber, and I was living the dream, and he just wants to make good content and spread the wealth to everybody, and like a good-spirited guy. Well, now there's a lot of drama coming out, starting with one of his previous employees decided to start a campaign exposing him for some of his shadier practices. He's brought on board a couple other people that were involved in Mr. Beast projects who exposed some other things. There's kind of a lot to go into here, but I would probably start with the first thing that came to light, which was the fact that one of the people on his staff was found to be a registered sex offender, yes, which is not a good look if you have videos that are targeted primarily to children. It was a guy by the name of Delaware. Come to find out, the reason they call him Delaware is because he's no longer able to return to Delaware. Because he was convicted of a sex crime to somebody under 11 years old. Yeah. And he didn't go to jail for it. I guess he just did a plea deal. Now he's working on Mr. Beast videos. He would always wear a mask in the videos, so that was sort of weird, like they're trying to conceal his identity, and it was confirmed that he knew about that situation. Now, I'm not sure if they work with kids, but it seems a little odd that he would knowingly hire a sex offender for essentially a kid's production.
Yeah. So that article that you had read with that, was Mr. Beast aware of this? Like, did he also call him Delaware for these reasons? Like, did it go into anything like that, or?
Yeah, so there was the accusations made by somebody that went on the video of the main guy that was sort of exposing all this stuff. He had a lot of stories about his involvement, but he mentioned this Delaware guy, and Delaware's brother-in-law went on Twitter or something, and he made a statement explaining things, and apparently, like, it's one of those things where maybe there was a gray area with, sure, like the severe, like maybe it wasn't the most severe sex crime, but still it was with somebody that accused him of sexual assault back when she was 11, okay, and he took a plea deal, right, and so he kind of pled out and avoided prison time that way, but probably a little bit too much of a gray area to bring someone on. I mean, for sure, do you think that somebody that is convicted of a sexual assault crime like that, like, does that usually stop them from being employed at a normal company too?
So it depends. So I know of someone who works at a staffing agency, and pretty much half their job is this issue, right? And the staffing agencies call businesses felony friendly or not. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So like if you're felony friendly, what they'll do is they'll maximize, like they'll look at these businesses, be like, okay, if you're willing to accept felons, like what are the highest paying that they can get? And that's kind of the appeal process, or the appealing thing to people to go to these staffing agencies, because they can kind of help them on their behalf get these jobs when they are felons. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're sex offenders, but they're felons in some way, shape, or form, right? So, it's super interesting to look into as far as like jobs go and stuff like that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's ultimately your decision. I don't know what each states are. Like, each states have different laws for hiring and firing and all that stuff. So I know here, right, in Minnesota, there's no, like, you can essentially come up with any reason not to hire somebody other than, like, race or something like that. So, I hope that answers your question, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, it does. I guess I was just trying to wonder, like, he is a business owner, and so I was just wondering how abnormal is it for a business owner to hire someone with a past like that? Like, it could be that it's not that uncommon. I mean, I think we all agree that felons, whether it's a sex crime or not, I mean, they should be able to be rehabilitated and work.
Yeah.
You know, so I just was trying to figure out like how much of like a red flag is that really as a business owner that is Mr. Beast. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I mean, I don't really have much more to say about that guy, Delaware.
Yeah.
But the other thing that this guy was saying was that, you know, his Mr. Beast videos were faked.
Yes.
So he would do a lot of like game show type videos, and so he's found people that participated in these game shows, and they were doctored, right? So they would like edit things a certain way that maybe that's not exactly how it happened. This lady said she won 3rd place, but she was somehow edited out of that in the final product, and so in the video she wasn't third place, and that's another thing where, like, I don't think that's that uncommon in the world of like a reality TV show or a game show. My mom was on Deal or No Deal back in the day.
Yes,
remember
she was.
that?
I remember that. I remember watching the
that
episode.
was a big event, dude.
Yeah.
And we were disappointed how much she got cut out of the episode because you don't know how it's going to turn out. There's in any game show like that, there's so much footage. And she was explaining that even on Deal or No Deal, where you think it's a pretty straightforward process, there's a lot of direction from the production crew there. Like even her, she was not the contestant winning the money, it was her client. And so she was one of the people on the sidelines cheering on, and you know, they say like, should I take the deal or no? And then the people on the side say, don't take it.
Right, yeah.
Well, they would like tell her like, okay, so you're gonna be against her taking it, you know, so say don't take it, you know, and I guess her acting wasn't good enough, and so that's why she got cut out. So it's like, I don't know if we can vilify Mr. Beast for trying to make the most entertaining video possible by editing.
Yeah, when I was reading this, so that was the article that I had read, and it sounds like we may have read 2 different articles, but still the same concept. Like when they were, so it sounds like a lot of these like complaints are coming from like contestants for the most part. There was one that I read from a former employee or something that I'll get to in a second, but the problem is like, you know, these contestants are complaining like, part of the rules, they gave us like a rule book before the game show started or like whatever the challenge is. And it said, you know, if the guys are being dumb, like you got to talk them up or like boost their confidence and stuff and just be like all about Mr. Beast and stuff like that, right? Don't sign up for the show if like you're not willing to agree to these rules, right? Like these are rules, these are part of the game show. Like this, it's a show. Like you hit it right on the head. Like if you go to Deal or No Deal or what else is new out, The Floor or whatever's out, the Voice, like you follow whatever those producers tell you to do because it's their show. Like they're essentially controlling you at that point. Like you are the moneymaker to them.
And reality doesn't pan out as entertaining as it could be, you know, like
right.
You kind of got to doctor things up.
Yes.
If you watch any show like Survivor or whatever, I mean, they're going to, or any reality show, even if there's no game involved, like they'll film for an entire day.
Yeah.
And then they'll maybe throw in a reaction shot of something like where somebody reacted to something that was completely unrelated to what they're showing it, like unrelated to the context that they're editing that particular clip into. There's certain shows that I've watched where they have like, they have cups that are not transparent, like normally like a alcohol glass you can see through, right? It's glass. Well, they will have it be like gold. So that way they can use shots from all different points in a conversation or a scene, and you won't see the glass, like the drink in the glass going up and down randomly, so you won't be able to say, oh, they edited this out of order. Right. They do that so that way they can edit things in any order they want to make the best story possible. Yeah. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, Big Brother, love that show. But I'll catch them on their editing or something. But they do the same thing. They have gold or pure silver cups, so you can't see like what's happening when, or you know, if they're interviewing someone, you know, it's clear that they were interviewed after this happened and not before when they edited to make it look like before, you know, and stuff like that. So it's all editing. So there's that, right? And it's like, okay, well, you know, that's kind of part of the gig. And I don't know, obviously I'd be curious to see like these sexual harassment allegations, like the the article I read, unfortunately, didn't go like terribly deep into it. Like, it wasn't like, yeah, I was in the back area with Jimmy, who is Mr. Beast for those that don't know, and he like touched me inappropriately or something. Like, I didn't see any like allegations like that. I didn't see any read anything that said anything along those lines. You know what I mean? And
Right.
like, the thing that I'll say is Mr. Beast has like over 300 million subscribers, which is basically the population of the U.S. It's like 90% of the population of the U.S. And by the way, congrats to him. Awesome, right?
Yeah.
He's saying he's pulling in like almost 600 mil a year.
That's nuts.
I mean, dude, that's crazy, dude. So I think, you know what, like when I was reading this a lot, you know, I was thinking to myself, I think some of this may be that when things are going so well for you, I think you kind of cut corners maybe, or you're not paying attention as well anymore. And I think these things can like bite you in the butt. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You're not your first 1,000 episodes that he has or something. It's probably very much like we have to follow this, and this, and you know we're gonna do severe backgrounds on these people, and the next thing you know, dude's making 600 mil a year, and you got a Delaware working for you that he probably knew about but didn't really care because he's still pulling in, you know, over $500 million a year, right? So
there's got to be so many people involved.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I've ever watched a Mr. Beast video, but I believe, I mean, he features personally in a lot of these videos. But that guy's probably has, with the scale of these videos, probably has multiple giant projects going on at any given time. He's got to worry about the company. He's got millions of dollars to his name.
Correct.
And so that's a lot to think about, a lot to manage. Probably has, I mean, at least over 100 people that work for him that make all these things come together. And so as far as like how these videos play out, you know, things getting edited out, or maybe these videos are fake, like a lot of that stuff's probably not even his decision. But there is a little bit of like shadier things that like obviously are deliberate. Another accusation is, you know, he gives away a lot of money. He's Mr. Beast. That's what he's all about.
Yep.
But he got caught doing like fake giveaways, and there's multiple examples of this. But he would say, you know, you have to make a purchase to win, and people would like be told that they won, and then like they would never get the money.
Yep.
And I think that might be why he's successful, because most people that are not successful, they have a little bit too like rigid thinking.
Yeah.
Like if you or I wanted to do a giveaway, our number one issue is like, well, we don't have any money to give away. Like,
Right.
it seems like a great idea, a good way to grow the Secret Society of Man, but we have no money to give away. Mr. Beast says you don't need any money to do a giveaway.
Right.
Like they're not subscribing because there is money. They're subscribing because you say there's money, right? There's a difference there.
Right.
That successful people think outside of the box, and there's so many people that are buying into this that assume that they're not going to win.
Yeah.
There's maybe 10 people out of how many thousands that try to enter these sweepstakes that know that they got screwed, but their voice just it simply is not loud enough to combat with the major power that is Mr. Beast.
Yeah, you know, and I did read too, like, one of these ex-employees were saying, like, you know, Jimmy is just a different guy once the cameras are off and stuff like that. And, you know, I really sat back for a second. I'm not trying to be, like, the attorney for Jimmy by any means, shape, or form. But the dude is the most successful YouTuber on earth. Like, he passed PewDiePie, he was slightly in front of him. He's passed him. Mm-hmm. So he is the most successful YouTuber on earth. That's got to be a lot of pressure, man. Like, I would be, like you said, if I'm running over $500 million company at that age, like, that's a lot, man. Like, that's a lot to wear on you. That's a lot. Like, I'm sure his demeanor and attitude has changed over the past 5 to 10 years because there's so much weighing on him all the time. Like, dude, these stunts that they're doing now, if some are fake, some are not, but some they like legitimately like travel across the world and do crazy challenges. Like, I can't imagine the stress that comes out from like, and I'm sure he doesn't plan them himself, right? But like, you still have to travel. You still have to go out and be out there. Like, one that comes to mind is like Africa. Like, he went out to Africa and was basically out and about with freaking lions like the whole time. Like, I mean, that's stressful, man. Like, I don't know, but.
And he has so many other companies too.
Yes.
I mean, he had like a burger company for a
Beast
while
Burger.
during COVID.
Yep.
He's got like the chocolate bars, and then now he's got this Lunchly thing that we'll probably talk about. But like, that's a lot to be on one guy's plate. It kind of reminds me of whenever like you like love Adam Sandler movies, and then you see Adam Sandler at the airport, and you go try to talk to him, and he's just like, dude, like, I do not. Like,
right.
Get away from me. You know, like, some celebrities don't want to deal with it. Like, well, that's not how you were in your movie. You know, it's like, well, it's because they're not acting right now. So, like, give the guy a break on that front. I mean, there's some shady stuff going on with Mr. Beast, but it's like, you can't really say just because he acts differently on camera that he's fake.
I can't tell you how many times, bro, when I'm working, man, I just want a coffee. And I'll walk in the gas station. The first person, wasn't me. It's like,
I know.
Bro, I've heard that so many times, dude. Like,
I just shoot him.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's kind of like, you know, celebrity, like how much you see Adam Sandler, like, hey, Happy Gilmore, you know, and he's probably like, oh my God, I've heard that a million times, right? But you try and put on a smile.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, like, you just got to leave the guy alone sometimes, you know what I mean? But, you know, it's interesting. I think he's very good at what he does. And I think there is that lucrative business to him that, like you said, sometimes it's kind of like, look, am I exposing people's vulnerabilities to get more money? Maybe. Like, but at the end of the day, it's worked out for him. You know what I mean? Now, this might bite him in the butt, whatever's going on with this sexual harassment stuff.
Yeah. I think it has. And, you know, when you have so much money coming in, too, it's got to be hard to, like, to draw the moral line. I mean, you know, you're going to let some things slide when you know, like, you're doing it for the production. Like, maybe people aren't going to be treated the best, or you're going to work people a little too hard. Yeah. And for the people that aren't making the millions of dollars from every video, it's harder for them to see your perspective. Like, the guy that's being, you know, worked too many hours or worked a little bit too hard for some stunt, that's getting paid maybe $1,000. Like, he is not going to appreciate that at all compared to like Mr. Beast. Like, if he's making millions of dollars, then he's gonna have a different perspective. But I will say that at some point you do need to like check yourself on that level. Like, this guy that's coming out with, I think, 3 videos now outlining all these things, trying to expose Mr. Beast. Well, he's had employees from inside Mr. Beast's circle that have sent him verification that they actually do work for him, and he knows it's legit. Yes. They're saying, like, he is telling people to follow you and find out every person you ever worked for and look into your past, and he's trying to start disinformation campaigns so that way he can paint you out to be a drug addict who has a mom with schizophrenia, and, like, trying to, like, basically discredit this guy. Yeah. And I think that, you know, getting a little bit lost in the sauce is one thing, but once you are trying to manufacture disinformation campaigns to discredit a whistleblower, that's when you got to ask yourself, like, did we go too far?
Like, sit back in your office for a second and be like, man, how did I get here? Yeah. And I think that's a great idea, because still to this day, you can watch his first ever video. And I think Jimmy may need to go back, watch his whatever he was, teenager self, and really, like, be like, wow, like, I started in my backyard on a plastic chair doing, like, challenges or whatever, and I made it here. You know, I think there needs to be that humble, what am I doing type of thing.
Yeah, or ask his mom, because his mom probably remembers how it used to be. Right. You know, like, that might be a good perspective. Mm-hmm. She's seen the progression from, like, outside, but she's a trusted source. Yeah. So, like, at dinner, like, whenever he sees her, like, hey, Mom, like, should I start a disinformation campaign against this whistleblower? Like, should I paint him out to be a drug addict? Do you think that's a good idea? Yeah, exactly. You know. And the mom probably say, well, honey, I think you should just let this one go. you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that he needs somebody around him to ground him in a way that he's the opposite of grounded now. He's in the air. He's in space.
You know, some of the other issues I read too were some of these contestants were saying, well, they signed up for more than what they bargained for, right? Like they were, and again, I wish there was more to it because I didn't see a lot of, like, was it bad bathroom conditions? Like, what are we talking about here? Because I'll be honest, like, some of these contests that they have is like, hey, you want to win a private jet, you got to stand in the circle or you have to be touching it the entire time.
Yeah.
Bro, I will piss and shit my pants as much as I need to win that damn thing. So if there are complaints coming from, like, contests like that or... Again, have you seen his competition show? I haven't seen it. I don't know what...
But I've heard an account from one of these people that are making an accusation, and he was pretty detailed. So this is on the part 2 of I don't know this guy's name, but the guy that is making these big videos that are exposing Mr. Beast. In the second part, he brings on an employee that shares some of his experiences. So one of the stunts that they were doing at the Mr. Beast company is like a isolation thing, like they're in the hole in prison. What do you call it? Solitary confinement, right? So they're putting, like, all right, we're going to put you in solitary confinement for 30 days, but there's stuff in this room. So you're in a room by yourself, and you can see pictures of it. They got a pool table. He's got a hot tub, stuff like that.
I've seen something similar.
And he's like, but the guy was worried, like, how bad it's going to be. He's like, it's going to be fine. It'll be a breeze because you have all this shit in there. And periodically, he has to choose what he wants to give up.
To take away.
I'm not going to do the pool table anymore.
Right.
And so in the last week or so, well, he might end up with nothing in there, and it might be tough for, like, the last week. But he's getting, like, $300,000 if he does it. It's like $10,000
he's getting, like, $10,000
a day, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you can put up with a lot of stuff there. Well, they didn't tell him that they weren't going to turn the lights out. So he's like, well, can I get some nighttime hours so I can sleep? I mean, they have these studio lights on the entire time, 24/7, and you're not getting good sleep. You're going to start to go crazy. And they're like, well, no, we can't do that because it's going to mess up the time lapse, because the camera's got to be recording constantly. It's like, all right. And he's not getting any sunlight, and it's starting to wear on his brain. And he's probably halfway through, and he's super tired, and then he wakes up, and Mr. Beast is sitting there. He's like, hey, buddy, he's like, why don't you ask me why I got 2 suitcases? And he's like, why do you got 2 suitcases? And he's like, well, one's for the challenge today. He's like, you're going to be running a mile. So they get this guy out, and he goes to the treadmill, and he's running a mile, and he's got his feet are all blistered up, and he has to go get, like, medical care. And that's when he taps out because it just was way too mentally draining. He's like, everybody was so concerned for me, like all the staff and the editors. And he's like, the editors came up to me and they were asking how I'm doing. And he's like, oh, I'm doing fine. But, like, obviously he wasn't. And they're like, okay, because, like, this footage is pretty haunting. Because he's, like, trying to be, they tell him you got to be on all the time because you got to be entertaining and stuff. So he's, like, delirious, trying to do these different bits and stuff. But, like, you can tell he's not doing okay. And they're like, there is a horror movie cut of all this footage that we could do if we wanted to, Like, and they weren't really showing much. Mr. Beast himself wasn't showing much concern for him. And as he was basically, like, breaking down, everyone was, like, seeing if he's okay. And then he said everybody was looking at me except for Mr. Beast, who was sitting in a chair, like, turned the other way like a villain. And then he turns around and he's like, you could tell it was like the lawyer speaking through him. He's like, are you all right? I just want to make sure you're okay. Because, we wouldn't want you to sue us, like, just clearly too concerned for the company. And again, it might be because the guy's just not grounded and, like, he has a lot of people he's responsible for, but he was not being very personal in that moment. And it was a real rough time. They did not release that video, but they tried it again. And so you probably saw the video that they did do with a different person.
Yes.
And this time they're like, well, you get so many hours of sunlight a day. And the precautions that they took were because they didn't do that for the previous guy and ended up going terribly for him, So it's things like that.
So it makes me wonder, though, like, what's in that contract that you signed? Because, again, I can imagine Jimmy makes you sign something because there has to be a waiver of liability or something. Because look at the show like Naked and Afraid. Okay? These people are out in the wilderness with bears, lions, whatever, wherever they go naked. And, like, they're left out there. So if they get mauled or eaten to death, like Discovery Channel's not liable for whatever happened, right? So what's the difference? You know what I mean? Like if you sign up for whatever you're signing up for, like it's not like I feel like I think as an attorney, if I were Jimmy's attorney, I would say these people had an option to do this for more money. Jimmy didn't tie them to the treadmill. Jimmy didn't, tell them, and he gave them the cash after they did it. It's not like he swindled them, right? In this case, like, and from what I was reading on the contestants, they're like, I can't remember what the grand prize was, but they're like, yeah, we're doing it for this grand prize, but after a while, it's just we don't know if it's worth it or something. I don't know if it's a mentality thing, but bro, sign me up, dude. Like I will win that money, I promise you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that solitary confinement thing doesn't seem that bad. I mean, running the mile would be the marathon would be the worst part. Yeah. But you have a good point that the way this guy described it in his story was that it was $10,000 a day. And so I don't know if he would have if he tapped out early, he didn't get that money or what, but I believe he did get the money. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, it is a challenge, and it wouldn't be interesting to watch if it wasn't hard. Right. So, I mean, going in there, I mean, it's going to be tough, and you got to know that there's a possibility that you're not going to be able to do it. Even if it was you get $0 if you don't make it the whole way. Well, like, you're giving it a shot, and, like, you do have a certain responsibility to not let yourself, like, go through so much abuse. Like, if you can't handle it, then, back out. And you could argue that maybe he's trying to frame it like, oh, Mr. Beast was holding the money over me. I can't turn down $300,000. It's like, well, that's the deal.
Yes, you can. Like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's
either worth it or it's not.
Correct. Yeah, like, and that's your call at the end of the day. Like, the only other defense I can see a contestant saying was like, I wasn't mentally capable to make that own decision myself or something. Like, they're not mentally all there to like make their own self decisions, but I mean, you might be able to tell that in person or something if you're talking to them, but I don't know. The one I saw was similar. It wasn't like a confinement cell, but basically he was in like a hard tiled floor room. It started out with everything. He had a nice like water bed that he was sleeping in. He had everything, jacuzzi, same thing, like flat screen TV. And then every day, like, Jimmy would come in and be like, all right, I'm going to give you an extra $5,000, but you have to give me something from this room. And then as it would go, like, he would go, and then at one point he brought the dude's girlfriend. And he's like, if you want to see your girlfriend, we'll let you see her for like 4 or 5 hours, but you have to give me $10,000. You have to give me one of your suitcases.
Sounds like a good video, man. I want to watch it.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll send it to you at some point here. But same thing, like, it's kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. It's compelling me. Or like the guy staying in the grocery store. Like, how long can you survive in the grocery store, right? But same concept, like, he wouldn't tell the guy up front. And here's the thing. If I go to a Mr. Beast competition, I know there's going to be things changing throughout the competition like this. So you should know that going in. He would tell the guy, he's like, all right, I know you thought you'd have all these resources and stuff. But he's like, every day that you stay here, I want you to give me, I think he said, like $200 worth of items from this grocery store. So he started off with the plastics, the things he couldn't consume. But then after that, he had to start giving away. He started dog food, that other stuff, and then he would do more of human food and stayed as long as he could until he just couldn't do it anymore. So, I don't know, man. I mean, like I said, the sexual stuff, not cool. One of his main guys' name was Tyson. He's now a transgender. He was also caught doing some weird crap. Like he was like reaching out to this guy who does like cartoon anime and was like asking for naked like 10-year-old pictures, like drawn out anime and stuff. And like that's effed up. Like that's not okay.
That's like a really common thing.
Like what is that? Like
it's called being a lolly. That's what
they mentioned that. So he said that. He said he had mentioned lolly in one of his like posts or something like that. And that's what they said. They said like this is like a common like anime thing. And that's weird.
And
like,
the justification for it, it's like a meme at this point. Everyone that's normal thinks it's weird, but it's fairly common for like these anime dweebs, right? So I guess for the ones like that watch hentai, this is like one step like beyond that, right? But like the idea is that a lot of these like anime characters, they might look like a toddler or a baby or a little girl. And you're like, so that's sick. You're like lusting for a little girl. And they say, well, actually, she's a 30,000-year-old dragon just taking the form of a little girl. So it's a loophole.
Dude, bro, that's sick. Because here's the problem. You still can't get past... Okay, if these people are sexually pleasuring themselves to that photo, that is still a 5-year-old that you're watching. I don't give a shit if they say it's a 30,000-year-old dragon woman. That picture is what arouses you. That is a 5-year-old girl.
Yes.
Like, that is not okay. Like, if that person's 30,000 years old and they got wrinkled skin everywhere and that gets you off, fine. But, like, that's not okay, man. Like, that's not okay. Like, you're trying to cope with your problem. Like, you are a pedophile.
Yeah, they're just using a loophole.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's just a drawing. It's like, okay, but you're missing the point.
Yeah. Yes. Like, what?
Like, I'm not, like, worried for the victim in this case because it is a drawing.
Right.
I'm worried about you. Like, we're talking about you, right?
Yeah.
I know you're not, like, thank God you're not victimizing a real person, but it's still concerning that you might victimize a real person.
Yes.
Like, so, that it's weird and it's scary how common that is.
Yeah.
And then there's even, like, the furries that do, like, a similar thing.
Oh, dude, I've heard about those.
Because they will also commission drawings from artists. And by the way, who is doing this? Like, how hard is it to make it as an artist?
Yeah.
Where you have to resort, like, imagine like you grew up loving art and you're starting to try to make an online business. You can finally work for yourself as an artist, but you have to draw furry porn in order to make a living.
I don't know, man. It's messed up. It's messed up. And look, at the end of the day, he's got some stuff to figure out. I think at some point, unfortunately, when you get that big, something bad is going to happen. Somebody's going to come out, whether it's valid or not. I'm sure these are valid of what they're saying, but whether it's valid or not, like, people are going to try and take you down in some way, shape, or form. Like, that goes with job place, that goes with anything you're trying to be successful at. There's always people that are just a-holes and just want to, like, try and take you down, right? And so I think in the grand scheme of things, I think Jimmy's done a lot of good for people. I mean, he tipped a delivery guy a house one time. So that was awesome, I guess.
Even if half the things that he shows are true, then, I mean, he's done so much good.
Yeah, yeah.
There's just the fact that this is an entertainment show, and like, the other thing is, like, a lot of these contestants or random subscribers that he has on the videos are actually his employees, which is another thing.
Yeah, so I read that.
Yeah. So I guess he probably just balances, like, well, look, I can't give away all my money, but I'll give away, 25% of what I say I'm going to give away. But still, though, I mean, if he's giving away a house to somebody, that's way more good than I'm ever going to do in my life.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up because one of these ex-employees had mentioned in this article that I read that they were like, a lot of the competitions are staged. Like, more than half of these people are either his family or they're his employees' family members in there. So, like, these aren't always just strangers. They, like, know somebody in some way, shape, or form. Which, by the way, I will say this. So I work for a second company that I won't name. But one of the people that answer the phones at this company, they got on the show The Floor with
what is The Floor?
With Rob Lowe.
Okay.
Basically, it's like I think you go in there and you're like, what's your expertise? And that'll be like your tile on the floor. There's 100 tiles, and you need to beat out everyone in their expert area. Okay. Essentially, is what it is. So I went to him one day, and I'm like, hey, how did you get on a Fox show? Like, how does a guy from the suburbs of Minnesota get on a show like that quick? Because the show's pretty new. He's like, well, actually, I know somebody. One of the producers of the show, I actually know her, and she called me up because they were looking for people. And he's like, well, if the money, like, do you guys pay for my travel and stuff? They're like, yep, we'll cover all that. We'll even pay you to be on the show and stuff like that, aside, like, any prize money if you win. And he's like, absolutely. So I think people need to be aware that there's a lot more, I wouldn't call it nepotism, but there's a lot of, like, as the saying goes, it's who you know, it's not what you know. Yes. That gets you further. Hands down, right? So I think there's that, too, to this as well. So...
Well, I don't know if he ever came out with an official response, but I think he can make a case. After talking to you about this, I feel less bad about Mr. Beast than I did originally because I just got done today listening to that guy's story where he's essentially like holding back tears, talking about his experience, the guy that was in isolation. But I think that Mr. Beast could take a different perspective. We're like, hey, he could have left at any time. When he tapped out, I let him out. I gave him money.
Yeah, like we're not... right.
I'm sorry it was a bad experience.
Yeah.
And we did learn from it, and we did it better the next time. But, you weren't stuck there. We didn't kidnap you.
No.
And there's probably a mix of good and bad, but I think he can do a lot of damage control here. Now, the last thing I want to say about Mr. Beast is, yeah, he has a lot of bad PR. But last week I was at the grocery store, and I saw a mom walking out with like a candy bar, Mr. Beast candy bars for her kids, And at that time, all I knew about was like the sex offender issue being on the team, and like most parents don't know anything about Mr. Beast. They just know that their kid likes it. The kid's young enough; they're not going to look into scandals with Mr. Beast and things, and they won't be able to really like interpret a lot of what's going on. And so I don't even know how much this really is affecting his brand and his income. And maybe it'll affect a partnership with YouTube or whatever, but I wouldn't put it past YouTube to slide this stuff under the rug either.
Right, and how quickly, like, now, I mean, this could go on for years, right? Like, the civil stuff, I can't imagine there'd be anything criminal out of this, because when you're that rich, like, you know how it goes, like, they'll go to these 5 people or whoever's the main victims here, and they'll be like, hey, we'll write you a check for $1 million. Like, you good to just call it a day or whatever, and they, sign off, and then done, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think after this is done, if I was Mr. Beast, either, like, I would make a serious thought and be like, look, I'm going to do 2 or 3 more years of this. I'm going to pull in almost $2 billion, and then I'm done. Like, I'm just going to be a billionaire for the rest of my life. And by the way, still get paid for my old videos that are still collecting views. And then even then, what he could do is, let's say he goes off the grid. He's like, yep, this is my last episode, whatever, January 1 of 25. Okay, perfect. All of a sudden, boom, July of 26 comes around, and he's like, I'm back, and he's going to get, I mean, it's going to explode, right? It becomes that... the scarcity thing where people almost crave more scarcity sometimes on big YouTubers like that because they've known him for so long that when they're just clamoring for whatever he can give them, right?
And even people that hate him by that point would still watch it and get some paid still. Like, not everybody needs to like you. I mean,
correct.
There's a chance that a bad PR like this could get your name out to more people. Like,
yes.
I never would have watched a Mr. Beast video before, but I might watch one now.
Yeah.
And he might capture me with his charisma. And
how many times we talked about, like, sometimes bad PR is good PR.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about the lady who was hammered singing the national anthem, and it's like, never heard of her before, but everyone has now.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting, man. It's interesting. So, I mean, is there anything else you want to add to that story? I guess for me, I try and look at it both ways. Again, I don't want to diminish the victims. That sucks. Like, if something bad happened to you, I hope you get your justice in one way, shape, or form. But also, Mr. Beast is a business guy who pays people for competitions, and like no one, again, like you said, no one's forcing you to be there. If I went in there and I'm like, look, I'm getting 50,000, I'm out. Then I'm taking the 50,000, I'm out. Now I watched a video where he had two guys who were fairly good at wilderness living, essentially.
Yeah. And
basically he's like, same concept. I will pay you each 10 grand a day, so 20,000 a day. Each day you stay out in the wilderness. Okay. And I think they were allowed to bring like 2 or 3 tools with them each, so they could have like build a fire and stuff like that. But no bow or nothing to make it easy to hunt, right? These guys ended up pulling in like well over 100,000, like almost $200,000 or $300,000.
Wow.
And it got to the point, like in the videos, because they kept a camera and they were recording themselves and stuff. In the videos, like one guy was ready to tap out. He had kids at home. He's like, dude, I want to go home. But the deal was, Jimmy said, you both have to stay here if you want to get paid. So there is no like, he can go and you can hang out and pull in your end. No. Like, he's like, once one taps, you're both done. So this one guy was like, kept convincing him, like, stay another day. And they ended up, I forgot how long they stayed out there, but for quite some time. And Jimmy tried bribing them, like, hey, I'll give you 60,000 today if you want to quit or whatever. And they'd say no. And they would keep going. And he would drop a suitcase from a helicopter down into
with
this
money
field.
in it?
Yep, for their payment. And then he'd take off. So, but yeah. So, what are your ending thoughts, I guess? Like,
well, I guess the last thing that came to mind in your last statement there was like, do you know Howard Stern?
I do.
Okay,
yep.
Yeah. I mean, back in those days, like them and Opie and Anthony would just do horrific things on their show. Like, they both, I think both of them, just making fun of those characters, right? But then they made like a gay guy eat a girl's vagina on the show, like, and it was just, he was like throwing up and shit. Like, this type of thing has been around forever, and nobody ever has gone after Howard Stern for the shit that he did, or Opie and Anthony for the shit that they did. They had to stop it after a while because, radio regulations and things. But there was never any outrage about that stuff back then. Because, like, even though they were being pressured to do things they didn't want to do, it was funny. Their misery is entertaining in a way. And there's something to that, as long as they're not literally being held there against their will. So I guess my closing statements on it is, we'll see how it pans out, just like everything. But I feel like, I don't know if people will buy any sort of apology from him, because people are just vilifying him, but I do know Mr. Beast will be fine. He'll survive this.
The mayor of New York City is our second story here. He goes by the name of Eric Adams, and I think there's a lot to unpack here too, and I think there's a lot of political things here that are interesting that tie into it, okay? I think essentially they're kind of pulling a Trump on him, which is interesting because he's a Democrat. And sometimes I understand, like, they'll eat their own sometimes. But, okay, so essentially, all of a sudden the U.S. Attorney's Office comes out and they're like, yep, we're charging Eric Adams with 5 main charges. And basically the charges are conspiracy to commit wire fraud, federal program bribery from foreign nationals, wire fraud itself, solicitation of a contribution by a foreign national, and bribery. So basically anything that surrounds money or receiving money illegally is what it sounds like. Eric Adams is denying these, like any of these allegations, these charges. The FBI has already searched like his homes, his vacation spots. They've seized things like his phones and stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, I mean, unless he is a fantastic liar, which he might, because he's still a politician, he's still mayor. He straight up went to the front podium and he's like, here's the deal. Like, everyone, before you get an opinion here, like, wait until my defense team comes out and tells their statement. But then he alluded to, he's like, I think this is political. He's like, I think this is backlash because basically he's crapping on the border crisis right now and all the immigrants that they're getting in New York. And he's been very vocal about that, which again is not. And look, some people have the D or R next to their name. Some lean more to the other side, even though they might have a different party next to their name, right? I don't know if he's just sick of it, if he's tired of it, or if he truly has different ideals about that. But at the end of the day, like, the way I think about it is, it is interesting timing after he's crapped on this enough that all of a sudden this comes out. By the way, apparently this has been going on for like 10 plus years. Mm-hmm. So now's the time that you want to like come out and make this a big deal. You know what I mean?
Even if it is all true, the timing
Correct.
of coming out and getting him for it is suspicious. I never thought of that. And there's probably so many more examples of this type of thing.
For sure.
That they're letting go, but
yes.
they might be specifically targeting him.
Yes, and not to mention, the election is in a month and a half. So, or not even. It's like 5 weeks. So you're talking like, I mean, it's interesting. It's kind of weird. Like it's strange, man, because you got him getting charged for these crimes, and he's even saying like, has he gone on vacations? Yeah, but he's like, I've done them legally. There's nothing out here that I've done in a criminal manner of accepting money from, and a lot of it was based on Turkey, I guess. Turkish, like foreign nationalists is kind of what they were like focusing on the most. I don't know if there's others in there, but that's kind of the main one. And which is interesting, like Turkey, I don't know, that's kind of strange to me, but like it's strange. It's very strange, and I think some of this might be trying to get people's attention somewhere else. I don't know. Because I know J.D. Vance and Tim Walz are supposed to debate here soon. So I don't know if they're trying to like throw like different eyes somewhere else or whatever, but it's just strange. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, it is strange, and I thought like the circumstances are strange, but he seems kind of like I don't know. He comes across to me, just hearing some of the stuff that's happened, like a guy that's just easily bribed, like he just enjoys luxury. And a lot of what this comes down to is like flights. So he's being flown around on Turkish Airlines in their business class, which is like the top class. Our business class isn't the top class. First class is our top class, but in Turkish Airlines, business class is the best. So you're treated the best there. It's the most comfortable flights. It's to the point where he would take flights that it was nowhere near convenient to fly on Turkish Airlines in order to be able to fly in these first class. Like he would be flying to like Paris or something like that. So he would fly from New York to Istanbul to Paris. Like just so
you're adding 8 hours to your flight.
Yeah, like just so he can enjoy himself on the plane.
Yeah.
And I guess there's some records of his staffer who would like communicate with people that want to make donations, and so she was communicating with one of these Turkish people that basically said like, we want to make a donation to Eric Adams. It'd be around $100,000, and she's like, well, that's I'd say above the limit. Like how would that even work? And he's like, well, I'll just have some Turkish people that are citizens donate to his campaign. And well, that's like a straw donation scheme. Like you're not able to do that. The donations got to come directly from who actually is donating, and you can't funnel it through random people. Well, the staffer goes, well, I think that would raise some eyebrows. That seems like a pretty egregious scheme. I don't think Eric Adams is going to be interested in doing that, but I will ask. So she goes to his office like, hey, these Turks, they want to commit this blatant donation fraud. They want to use straw buyers, and he's like, do it. She's like, all right. He did not care.
Right.
And I guess in the past, like you said, this has been going on for a long time, like 10 years. Before that, though, he would properly disclose these gifts that he was getting. So he knew that these are things that needed to be disclosed because he used to disclose them. But at some point, he decided that he didn't want to anymore. And then my favorite thing was that once he found out that the FBI was coming for him, he decided to lock his phone And when he talked to the FBI agents, they're like, well, can we see your phone? And he's like, yeah, well, the problem is that I changed my password when I found out you guys were coming because I didn't want any of my people to go into my phone and accidentally delete something that you would want. But then I forgot my password that I changed it to, so I don't know the password to my phone. You know, like just this blatant, goofy ass lie. It was no better than whenever I got caught. I came home one day when I was a teenager stoned, and my mom caught me, and my eyes were like bloodshot, and I said that it was allergies. And I just tried to like double down on that. And it was just one of those things. Eric Adams knew he was caught. The FBI agent must have been looking at him like he was a fucking idiot. But he's like, well, as long as I don't admit that I'm lying, then they can't technically prove it. So it seems like a goofy guy, not the best liar. And it probably is true, but I never considered the timing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's probably true. There's definitely some criminal things here for sure. Like there's something there. But again, it's the optics, man. I mean, it's kind of like when Trump got like 100 freaking charges or something like 3 or 4 months ago. It's like
he's a
okay, like
200-time felon.
Yeah. So not only have you tried putting him in prison for years, but he's also been almost assassinated twice now. So if it happens a third time, I mean, at some point, if this is actually like happening from the left, and again, we can't prove that, but like if it is, at what point are you like, you know, maybe we should stop? Because at some point, like, I feel like it's going to drive his price or his value up even further, right? Like, he's going to go up there and be like, dude, I survived 2, maybe even by the time he goes to the election, 3 assassination attempts. And it's clear that they want me out, they want me dead, they want me in prison. Like, vote for me and I'll put all these actual criminals in prison and stuff like that. Like,
well,
I don't know.
I mean, I think the people that want to see it as an attack are going to see it as an attack.
Sure.
But like with Eric Adams, I mean, especially if the stuff is true, right? It makes a difference if it's true or not. Even if the timing is like convenient, it's hard to be mad that they're going after him for something he actually did.
Right.
Trump's a little bit different because they've been going after him from day one.
Yeah.
And they first, they wanted it to be something big, like he is a foreign agent for Russia. That's what it was all about.
He's like, I'm not
right
friends
away.
with Putin. He's like,
yeah, and like they went after him like he was like committing treason, and he was planted here by Russia, and they used election fraud to get him in there. So that's pretty big accusations. They looked into it. They couldn't find anything like that. So they've slowly just been like lowering the bar, and then now they're able to get him for using campaign funds on a fucking whore, right? And so it's like, all right, you got him, but how many things you have to throw out the wall to get it?
Yeah, no kidding.
So I feel like the optics are a little bit different there. People will think that people that support Trump are going to think it's a sham. The people that don't support him are going to think, well, we finally got him, right? But for Eric Adams, I don't know how many people are really going to be on his side. I mean, I think that this is probably going to tarnish his reputation forever, and is probably not going to like rally his base. I don't think he has the pull for that.
Yeah.
Because he was using people's money. I mean, I guess, you could say Trump was too, but I don't know. I think people are going to be more offended at this because he also was taking advantage of a program where Eric Adams, where they have some kind of program in New York where, like, if you donate money to a campaign, this fund will, like, 8 times your money. So, like, if you donate $100, they'll, like, make an $800 donation to your candidate of choice.
Holy
and
crap.
So he was basically, like, using an infinite money glitch and, like, trying to, like, he was using straw donators himself to, like, times 8 their money and, like, put it into his campaign fund. So he was like cheating a system that does take public tax dollars from New York citizens and essentially putting it into his own bank account. So, I mean, I think he's probably completely guilty. We'll see what defense he comes out with because it seems like just a blatant, goofy situation. But yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah. All right. So our third story, I know we wanted to cover Israel a little bit. It's just kind of a good segue because we were just talking about Turkey, so, somewhere over there. So Israel is obviously in a fight with Hezbollah in Pakistan and kind of that area. So a couple things I'll say before I get into this. Okay. Israel has one of the strongest militaries on earth. Like, stronger than, I would even argue, us, the U.S. Like, these guys are surrounded by enemies. They need to be ready to go at any point in time. Okay, so I'll start with that. So Hezbollah, for those that don't know, is a terrorist group. Like, it's a political terrorist group. There are terrorists in that group. That is a thing. Basically, it started with Pakistan attacking Israel. Israel, to me, like, if I were to paint this picture for people that don't know, like, Israel's kind of like the little kid on the playground, and these countries would poke and prod them, and, like, they would kind of, the little kid might, like, respond back, but then he'll leave it at that. Like, it is what it is, like, and then they'll move on, okay? Well, unfortunately, this last time, this little kid grew up. He's on steroids, and he's pissed off, right? And Netanyahu, who is their president, their prime minister, whatever he's called, basically said, like, we're not going to stop until they're eliminated. Like, Hezbollah is wiped off the face of the earth. There is no more Hezbollah, right? And they are following through with their word. In fact, recently, I know Biden's been all about, we need to stop this. Like, there's it's just not, war's not good for people. And Netanyahu's like, I appreciate that, but not happening type of thing. They've already killed, I think, 6 or 7 of the top 8 Hezbollah leaders already. And they're going after the final dude that's on that tier list. So if I were him, it's like a John Wick movie, dude. I would have like 800 dudes around my compound the entire time.
Yeah.
So
really quick.
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't have a great understanding of the specifics of what's going on over there, because there's a lot of shit going on over there. This is not the same group that they're directly opposed to in Gaza, right?
Correct. That's a different deal.
So because, like you said, they're attacked on all sides.
Yes, yep.
But, man, like, Israel, they're the champs.
Bro,
I mean,
they are smoking people.
So, like in the last week, the main story we were going to talk about was the fact that they sabotaged pagers that went out to these Hezbollah, like, lieutenants, I guess.
Yep.
And they just flipped the switch, and over the course of 2 days, there's videos of guys shopping for groceries, and then their pants just explode, and they just die. It was like this mass assassination. You ever watch Breaking Bad?
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of like the scene whenever they had to get rid of all the guys in prison, and so, like, it was just a montage of, like, they just set it all up where all the people that were going to snitch on them all got assassinated in the course of, like, 2 minutes, and the cops are like, what the fuck? So, like, that's what happens to Hezbollah, and they're like, holy shit. It was just like an epic operation. You don't see anything like that.
Epic.
And then a couple days later, they do a missile strike and take out their leader.
Yeah.
And like their second in command guy. And so it's like, man, they fucked those guys up,
bro. And they're not done, dude. And that's the thing. Like, that's what I mean. Like, it's almost on a psychotic episode at this point. Like I said, man, like, they've been poked and prod too many times, and they've had it. And I think people are finding out, like, in a bad way, that it's too late. Like, there is nothing you can tell them that would change their mind. Like, they're going to kill them all. Like, there is no, like, Netanyahu, like, I guarantee he sleeps with these pictures of these dudes, and, like, he wakes up and he's like, we're taking this dude out, right? Like, and they just go and they just do it. Like, they just bomb the shit out of these places. Now, like war, unfortunately, there have been some kids that they said, I think, were either killed or injured. But they did say with these pagers that minimum 37 dead, but thousands injured from these pagers.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize there were that big of explosions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, They were looking at, apparently it's like, I mean, it's just like a small bomb in your pocket. You know what I mean? So I'm guessing part of it is the shrapnel that they put in there, that, a blade that shoots out 20 feet, if it slices you in the neck or something, you're dead, right? So,
well, it's still pretty precise compared to, like, an airstrike. Like, that missile that they took out that guy with, I mean, they said it was a precise strike, and I suppose it fucking worked. They got 2 guys in one. But, the video game Fallout. They did a TV show recently for that.
Yep.
I don't know if you watched it or not.
I do watch it.
Okay, so you did watch it.
Not
so
the whole thing, so don't tell me.
Okay, well, there was, somewhere in the middle of that season, there's a moment where two of the characters walk out to see the crater of where a nuke had dropped on a city, and you just get to see this massive crater and the destruction. The picture that I saw of where that missile landed looked exactly like that. It looked like it was just a crater.
Yeah.
Where this, you could see the parking underneath where the building was. It's just like crazy destruction. But Netanyahu probably doesn't care about the casualties. You only care about that if you got to be elected.
Yeah, I think, and what's weird is like a lot of, from what I'm hearing, like Hezbollah and stuff is like trying to get other countries to back them, you know? But I quite honestly, like, I haven't heard a lot back from those countries. Like, I think the countries are like, look, we're not touching that. Good luck. Like, we're not going to help you out. Like, I'm sorry that, you know, like, that this happened to you, but you're probably not going to be alive by the time this message gets to you. You know what I mean?
I know they have, like, connections to Iran and things, but I think the main problem is going to be that sort of there's going to be, like, a power vacuum now. I mean, they might have to deal with infighting to. This has got to be the lowest point of that organization. Their leaders are all dead. And I guess they have, like...
Well, there's one guy left, but yeah.
Okay. But they have, like, multiple layers of backup for who gets to take leadership, just like United States. Like, you can kill the president and the vice president and the speaker of the House, and, like, some guy is in the line.
Yeah, there's a cabinet that...
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Well, they have the same thing in that organization. But if you now have to go to the eighth guy in line, like...
And he's like Uncle Roger sitting there in the corner, you know. And it's
like he doesn't have any experience. Nobody respects him. Like they're gonna try to take power from that guy. So
well, and you make a good point with that though. Like, at what point, like if somebody came up to you and be like, "Hey, you're the new leader," I'd be like, "No, I'm not. Like, I'm gonna die tomorrow. Like, they're gonna come after me. Like, at what point do you strike the fear of God in them, where they're like, no, like we're not doing that. You know what I mean? Because I feel like once they find out. Dude, it's gotten so bad that they're, like, using analog phones or whatever it is because they don't want to be traced. They don't use cell phones anymore.
Yeah, well, they were using pagers. That's what exploded.
Yes.
Like, imagine, like, okay, goddamn it, they're tapping into all of our cell phone towers, so we can't use these. Goddamn Israel. We're going to use these pagers. They're completely safe, and then all the pagers explode. Like, they're kicking them while they're down.
Yeah.
Like, they're doing so good that I almost believe in God now. Like, how come we aren't just... Like, they have God on their side.
It's the Holy Land, dude. Yeah, it's... I mean, Hezbollah literally might be, like, passing notes on horseback. Like, straight up. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that paper will be lined with ricin or something, and they'll just start dying off that, you know? Like... You know.
This the mass assassination reminded me of like all the, I think they're urban legends at this point, but all the attempts that they made to get Fidel Castro in Cuba. You know, they said they would try to put a bomb at the end of his cigar or whatever. Yeah. Like it was that type of attack, but they really executed it super well.
Yeah.
It was a cold move on their part.
Yeah.
And then I guess we're just trying to like hold them back. But man, I mean, this stuff in the Middle East just never ends.
No.
And it just seems like a shitty place to fight. Like, I never seriously considered being in the military, but I think that if I was 20 now, like, I probably would think about that. But what a shitty place to have to go and fight a war, like, in Afghanistan or Pakistan. It's just, like, hot as fuck out there. Like, I'd rather have to go fight anywhere nice.
Yeah.
But it just seems so unappealing, that whole area of the world, but like that's where everything is happening. There's so much conflict over there, and at this point Hezbollah's got to have to get a hold of a nuke. That's the only thing that they can do to like have some sort of power over Israel at this point to get them to stop.
Yeah, well, and that's the problem is like Israel has better defenses, right? So like they have the Guardian or whatever they call it.
Isn't that crazy?
Like it shoots missiles out of the air.
Yeah, like whenever this first started, I saw like a video of that, and the missiles are coming, and you see them exploding in the air. Like that's like Iron Man shit.
Yeah.
Like
in fact, I actually think it is called Iron Dome or something like that.
Yeah, that is what it's
the
called.
system's called. So so it's like, I mean, they can't. Look, I'm sure there's been some casualties on the Israeli side too, but not nearly as much. Have you seen Lone Survivor?
No, I know the story well, but I've never seen the movie.
So like it's four Marines or whatever. There might be SEALs. I can't remember. But anyway.
They were SEALs.
Yeah. So 4 SEALs go out there and they essentially, like, I'm sure the movie tried to be as accurate as possible, but there's a scene in there where they're doing recon because they can't get comms back to the headquarters. So they're like, well, we need to see, like, what, we're going to have to stay the night. So we need to do some recon. Well, one of the guys goes crawling over and he looks up in the mountainside and you see, like, at least 100, 150, like, dudes with RPGs standing on the hillside. And so he, like, goes back to the group and he's like, we are going to, like, be in contact soon. Like, we're going to be in a gunfight soon. These 4 dudes took on, like all these dudes, like 100, 150 guys. Now, obviously, lone survivor, it's in the title. But I mean, most of the time, most of them were alive, and they took out more than half of this group. So you're talking, like, 1 SEAL per every 15 dudes.
Yeah.
Like,
what's
that's
kind of shitty?
wild, dude.
It is
like,
wild. But
like,
I watched a video, and this is what's shitty, man. Nothing can be trusted. I watched a video, and it goes in all about how this guy's story is bullshit. And how,
no!
But it's like, you never know. But he's like, looking at records, there was only this many units deployed in this region at this time. Like, so they really go into it, and you leave it thinking, like, God, this guy's, like, fabricating this story. But it's like, you never know. But I hated how you can't have any cool stories anymore without somebody debunking it, dude. Everything gets debunked nowadays.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, like, here's my thought on that. If you're going to try and debunk those things, like, you better be right, because do you know how disrespectful that is for a guy to go through a situation like that? His brothers in arms have died. He's the last one to survive, barely. If, again, I'm following what the movie was, right? But, like, how demoralizing or disrespectful is that? If he's even wrong about, like, 10% of what he reported back, like, dude, that like, were you in that situation? Like, bro, we're taking on, like, 150 Taliban here. Like, you weren't in that situation. How dare you, like, come out?
Yeah,
you know
I would
mean?
feel dumb making that video. Like, what am I doing? Like, there's no reason to do this.
Honestly, I hope, even if, and again, I believe him, but even if, like, half of it is wrong, I hope he makes money off of it. Because he still went through a shitty situation, whatever it was.
Yeah, he had a rough time after that firefight, like, trying to survive.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the video where this guy that denied the moon landing?
Yeah.
He went up to Neil Armstrong and said something like, "Oh, you didn't, like, how dare you, like, say that you went on the moon? Like, will you swear on the Bible that you landed on the moon?" And Neil Armstrong just punched him in the face.
Yeah, dude,
and that's probably how that SEAL feels, you know, about it. But I guess that's just the world we live in now. I mean, at least he knows what he went through, and I think more people will believe that story.
I mean, a lot of that happened with Chris Kyle, the American sniper.
Yeah.
Like, what's his face, our old governor. I can't remember his name right now.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about, though. He was a SEAL. And he basically called Chris Kyle out and said that he's lying about a lot of the shit that he said he did or wrote in his book. And but
that guy also had a TV series where he would debunk everything. He's obsessed with 9/11 conspiracies and shit.
I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying, like,
there's always going to be people.
There's always going to be people
that
do that, dude. Like, I mean, on here, there's people that say we get paid by Kamala's team or something.
That's so
I can
funny,
tell you right now that's not the case, people. Okay? Far from it, okay? You know, we're not getting paid by people for this. So, yeah.
That's hilarious, man. Because, like, yeah, you can just call out for anything. And it's like, that is just
that's
completely
wild.
Ridiculous. Because we'll make one video where we say anything remotely good about Trump.
Yeah.
And then someone is like, they make a response that's well thought out and everything. But it's like, to, like, counter my point. It's well researched, like, but you're probably not gonna like this. It's like, why not? It's like, I can appreciate a good point. It's like, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, like, why do they assume that I was gonna get upset about that just because I'm saying one good thing about Trump? So then they lump you in to that one side. The very next video says something decent about Kamala, and they're like, these guys are shills. Like, how much are they getting paid? And
it's wild, dude.
Ridiculous. So, but yeah, I mean, I would say that I do believe that guy's story. But yeah, I guess anything else about Israel?
No, that's it, man.
Yeah.
No.
They're the champs.
Yeah.
That's it. Undefeated.
Undefeated, never lost, dude. Like, for sure. So, do you want to end it there? I mean,
Yeah, that'll be it, man. That's
okay.
pretty good. So, yeah, thanks for watching episode 12 of Secret Society of Man. Check our channel for clips and daily shorts, and we'll see you next time.